I'm honored to welcome Dr. Sethuraman Panchanathan to the University of Oregon. This is the first time that an NSF director has visited Eugene and the University of Oregon. So Director Panchanathan, on behalf of the University of Oregon, welcome, and we are most grateful for your visit. The director's here at a pivotal time. We're getting set to welcome the class of 2028 to the campus, prepare our faculty and staff to return in full force, and move forward in the university's strategic plan. Many of our key aspirations align with NSF priorities and NSF-supported research, led by UO faculty and students. And this work has immense impact on our campuses, our region, and across the country and globe. NSF investments help UO scholars, to give just one example, address some of the most pressing societal challenges. And lo and behold, I'm going to pick on the Cascadia Region Earthquake Science Center, which is the first major research and education center to study the Cascadia subduction zone and the nation's first subduction zone earthquake hazard center. If any of you need to be frightened out of your minds, learn more about subduction zone earthquakes. The $15 million that the NSF awarded to establish Crescent is important in helping to understand where we live and the associated hazards. I'd also like to express my personal gratitude to Director Panchanathan for being a leader in Washington, D.C. in breaking down walls across agencies. If anyone spent time in D.C., you know that there's silos. And Director Panchanathan has worked very closely across different agencies, whether Health and Human Services, Department of Education, Department of Energy, Department of Defense, to get out of those silos and write calls for proposals and get people together and advocate for joint calls in ways that are fundamental to universities, because our university research and innovation environments rely on funding from so many different sources. And so that sort of partnership is really critical, and we thank you for being such a leader. One of our strongest commitments at the University of Oregon is to accelerate scientific impact. We are, of course, meeting in a state-of-the-art campus designed to do exactly that. But it also happens through NSF-funded career awards to our faculty, our early career faculty, that accelerates the success of faculty across the natural and social sciences and education. It also happens through critical training programs for graduates and undergraduates supported by NSF. And it also happens through our commitments to collaboration. I'm particularly excited about our partnership with the two-year colleges, our collaborators in the NSF-funded Oregon Pathways to Industry Research Careers program. I'd like to thank two presidents, Rachel Pokrat, the president of Umpqua Community College, and Stephanie Bulger, the Lane Community College, who are there. Wave your hands. All right, for being here today. These efforts provide mentored research training and professional development to prepare our trainees for accelerated career success and to bring undergrads from diverse and underrepresented backgrounds from across the nation to engage in research at the UO campus. Our collaborations extend across universities to companies in Oregon, and I want to express a specific note of gratitude to our colleagues from Intel. Wave, thank you. And our collaboration with faculty and staff and students from Oregon State University and Portland State University. Director Panchanathan, we're thrilled to welcome you, appreciate your willingness to share your wisdom with us during this visit, and eager to showcase our research strengths. So it's my pleasure to introduce Anshuman Razdan, our Vice President for Research and Innovation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, President Scholz. I want to welcome our colleagues, faculty, researchers, staff, students, and guests and members of the Oregon family. And as President Scholz noted, this is first ever visit by a National Science Foundation director. and indeed a momentous occasion for all of us. But before I introduce our speaker, I want to thank two Oregonians who made the trip with the director, Karen Marginell, Dr. Marginell, and she is the Chief Science Officer of NSF and prior Dean at Portland State, and Kim Silverman on staff of Punch, without whose help today would not be possible. So thank you, both of you. I also want to thank my team in the research office, government relations, president's office, communications, and other units within the campus that have all collaborated for this day to happen, which is unfolding tremendously good. You can understand my anxiety. So it is now my great honor and tremendous pride as a fellow Indian and as someone full of Oregon joy. Remember, folks, joy is not just in Minnesota. To introduce Dr. Sethuraman Panchanathan, from students to presidents and prime ministers across the world, he's known by Punch. So that's how we're going to address him. So welcome, Punch. He's the 15th director of National Science Foundation. And just while we are talking about that, out of the $170 million in research expenditures this year or this past fiscal year, we did about 33 million from National Science Foundation. So kudos to our faculty and researchers, and thank you to NSF. Just for historical context, if some folks may not know about NSF, NSF came into being in 1950 after World War II as need for an agency to support basic science and engineering to ensure long-term prosperity and security of the United States by investing and fueling innovation in US universities. So NSF, like NIH, is one of the only two agencies that supports basic science research. Next year, NSF celebrates 75th year, and I have to say that without leaders like Punch, who are not only pushing the depths of the disciplines, but across disciplines, NSF and the United States would not be the leader in science and engineering throughout the world as it is today. So on your seats, or as you were entering, you got a handout that has the full bio, exemplary bio of Punch. So, and some stats on the back. So if you get a chance, do read that. But I'm not going to repeat what is in the bio. Instead, I want to introduce him in a little more personal way. As a former junior colleague, as a fellow computer science researcher and a faculty, and someone who knows him a little more intimately than many of you that are gathered here. I hope that's okay with you, Punch. Okay, so we're going to take a trip back. We're going to take a trip back to 1997, Arizona State University, computer science department. There was a buzz about this new faculty, new professor who was an expert in AI and multimedia joining us from Ottawa. I was a brand new rookie, having just finished my PhD 2 years before that, and definitely green in my ears about grant getting. And so our world of 3D geometry and multimedia was just beginning to overlap as Punch arrived at Arizona State. And interdisciplinarity was the new word phrase in the research world in many of the funding agencies like NSF. So anyways, shortly after Punch's arrival, we jointly submitted a proposal. There was a call from SCIENCE Directorate, which is Computer in Science and Engineering, that called for interdisciplinary proposals. And we did a proposal about $500,000, which had an anthropologist and a professor of sculpture. That proposal was roundly rejected. And I quote, the summary comment was, this proposal is too interdisciplinary. When we said interdisciplinary, we meant hardware engineers talking to database people. I hope it's not too late to take SCIENCE to task, although it has. We were disappointed, I was dejected. So what did we do next? We doubled down, and Punch encouraged me to submit it the following year. We went from 500,000 to a 2.1 million with 13 faculty, 12 of them most senior faculty. I was the junior kid. And so we submitted a proposal. Overall, it was 2.5 million. It would have been very easy for Punch to suggest that I be replaced as a lead PI of the proposal by someone, a full professor with better credentials than me. Instead, he supported me to remain as a PI of that. This time we got the grant. That grant shaped my career, to be very honest. So I'm forever grateful for his support, and that reflects on him as a mentor of junior researchers and junior faculty. So why do I tell this story? Not only besides to publicly show my gratitude to Punch, but you'll see in a moment. So fast forward to February 2024, this year, I was at the Senior Research Officers Conference in Washington, D.C. Punch was a keynote speaker. He came in that morning. He was mad. He was fuming mad because the night before, Congress had cut his budget. He said he had been up all night drinking chai and tea. And anyway, as we concluded and he was headed out of the door, this is a true story, folks. I thought, this was my chance. I went up to him and said, Punch, will you come to Oregon? And his answer was emphatic yes. And then I'll quote the words that followed. In fact, a demand. He said, AR, by the way, that's how most people know me, as AR, I want to meet career faculty and graduate GRFP students. Make sure of that. So as you know, President Scholz talked about our career faculty or junior faculty or early in the research career who get 5-year grants. And NSF also has a fellowship program for graduate students. So his ask was not, pardon me, to meet with the president or other chief poobahs of Oregon. He wanted to meet, do you remember those words, right? So, by the way, in the last 5 years, UO faculty have won 20 career awards, and we're batting our average. Last year, we did 4, so not bad. So Punch's focus has always been to support early-stage faculty and students, and I'm happy to report the man and his priorities have not changed since 1997. In fact, his passion for supporting science and scientists has only grown stronger. And time to mention an unnecessary trivia. If there was a Guinness World Record for a 2-finger typist, Punch would win it. So he was at Arizona State for over 20 years. We collaborated and competed. My center was across the hallway from his Center for Cognitive Ubiquitous Computing. We played on opposite different teams for the Cricket League. But one of the most important things that happened as part of the Cubic was applying AI algorithms for visually disabled people to be able to shop in the stores. In fact, they had set up a storefront in Cubic, and they brought in visually disabled people and tried to improve their algorithms. And this was before, NVIDIA and AI rage of today or accelerated computing. So he was always there for the underdog, always keeping in mind that science must serve humanity and society. Did I mention he's crazy passionate about science? Folks might recall we recently, anthropologically speaking, went through a global pandemic, right? The dark days of COVID were also dark days for science. Labs were shut down, experiments were left in the middle, graduate students were stuck overseas, and we didn't know, to quote Jurassic Park, we didn't know if life was ever going to come back as we knew it. Science was under attack from politicians, and the previous NSF director had stepped down. And we were all nervous in the academic community, the research community, as to who is going to be the next savior of science. And then Punch was nominated and confirmed in June of 2020. And everybody, and I mean everybody, breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you, Punch. My point is, who in the world would be crazy to take on the NSF director's job in the middle of a pandemic? Except someone like Punch, who is crazy passionate about science. We appreciate your service. I know I've gone a little longer, so I will close with the punchline, no pun intended. I've been working on it for some time. You may know many leaders who can deliver a good punch. My friends and colleagues, for good of science and the country, this punch delivers. Thank you. Please join me. Welcome.
AR should stand for absolutely relentless fellow. I really mean it. I mean, he's an absolutely relentless individual right from the day I met. Who has the gall to have a 500K project rejected and goes to NSF and says, give me 2.3 million. That should demonstrate to you how relentless he is. He said Punch came to Oregon. He was relentless. I gave him a small opening. I said, yes, I want to come to Oregon. And he made sure that I came in a few months. So humor aside, I mean, thank you so much. I'm so proud of you, what you're accomplishing in your journey, and your leadership is phenomenal. And I'm so glad University of Oregon is fortunate to have you here. So thank you so much for your kind words. President Scholz, thank you so much for your invitation. You wrote a beautiful letter to me. And you know, if I would say that's the first president who wrote to me saying that, I hear you're coming to my campus. I want to welcome you. So that's very nice, Provost Long. Happy to be here, Congressman DeFazio. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate that. And your steadfast support for science and workforce development is what it takes as a nation for us to be in the vanguard, particularly at this moment when we need to outcompete with our spirit of innovation. Please, all of you who are standing, find seats here. I'm sure there are some seats open here. Please don't stand. You can take my seat too, by the way. So I just wanted to take a few moments because one of the things I've learned since coming to NSF is NSF seems to be the best kept secret. It has done unbelievable work. And oftentimes it is known to a few academics. I know there's an academic audience principally. Even here, I will tell you, not much is known about NSF except to the windows that people see NSF through. I'm a material scientist, I know something about NSF. I'm a soil scientist, I know something about NSF, but not the comprehensive picture of what NSF is and what it was envisioned to be. 75 years ago, this unbelievable scientist, Vannevar Bush at MIT, wrote an amazing treatment as we came out of World War II. He wrote this amazing treatment called Science, the Endless Frontier. And he said to then President Roosevelt, he said, Mr. President, we are coming out of World War II. We have done amazing discoveries and inventions like radar and other things that is impacting humanity, will impact humanity into the future. But we need to continue that level of intensity and intentionality so that we might continue to make that progress moving into the future. And so this treatment that he wrote was to develop an agency that is focused on curiosity-driven, discovery-based research and use-inspired, solutions-focused research, all of that being put together so that our nation may continue to be in the vanguard of unleashing prosperity for everyone, not only in our nation, but all across the globe, in every facet of what we needed to do. And he set forth this amazing mission statement. Now, in this day and age, where a new leader comes, with all due respect to President Scholz, new leader comes to universities, they want to write their mission statement and vision statement, right? Because that's understandable. They have this passion. They want to come with a vision statement and a mission statement. But folks, remember that this was written 75 years ago. I would not change one word of this mission statement. If that is a testament to the unbelievable ingenuity of Vannevar Bush and what he set forth in terms of building this unbelievable agency. This was in 1945 when he wrote this treatment, Science, the Endless Frontier. 5 years later, by an act of Congress, in 1950, NSF was established, signed by President Truman. And that's this agency. The agency that is responsible for the progress of science advancing national health, prosperity and welfare, and of course, securing the national defense. Economic security, national security, prosperity, and ensuring that we are solving real problems for real people everywhere. And that is an impact, that it has an impact globally by what we do here. And that's the agency. When I came to the agency, therefore, I said, what are the things that I would like to see that NSF emphasized? What I call strengthening at speed and scale. This is the moment that calls for us to strengthen at speed and scale. I have aspirants at the end of the lecture for those of you who get headaches. So because of the volume. And I have to warn you, my volume increases as I get excited. And it turns out that I usually get excited as I go through my lecture. So you better be prepared. So you should have brought some. So when I came to NSF, I said, this legacy of 75 years of unbelievable progress has to continue at speed and scale. And that should absolutely be the case because that's what the nation needs. That's what the globe needs. And therefore, strengthening the established NSF is something that should be an imperative. It is like we are not walking away from anything, but we are doubling down, tripling down on everything. But then what is missing? What is missing is a central piece of that we want to accomplish. And what is that? That is to ensure that there are the opportunities. As I say, talent and ideas are democratized and they are everywhere across our nation. Tell me if it is not. Rural or urban, across the broad socioeconomic demographic, across the rich diversity of our nation, talent and ideas are democratized. But guess what? Opportunity is not democratized. This is an unacceptable future for any nation, particularly for a nation like the United States, which is leading the world. And therefore, how do we ensure that those missing millions of people who ought to be brought into this talent spectrum, how is it that we do that with intentionality and intensity? And this is a very important imperative. And I wanted to make sure that although NSF has been focusing on that through our EPSCOR program, through a variety of programs in the EDU directorate that our dear assistant director at that time, Dr. Karen Maranjal, led, and now as chief science officer is emphasizing that a lot more every day in her job, is how do we ensure that we put a laser focus on this? That is, we are making sure that we are doing everything to ensure that all institutions are successful. AR talked about the fact that I have come to Oregon. Let me tell you why I said yes right away. I want to go to those institutions where the NSF directors have not gone. I have not been at Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Berkeley. I have not been there. Nothing wrong. But those institutions where the NSF director goes or not will do amazing work. But I want to celebrate the work in those institutions where people don't go to celebrate those work. And I want to make sure that the Lane community colleges and the unbelievable community colleges in this environment here represented by the leaders are celebrated, are recognized, because that's what it takes for our nation to be in the vanguard of innovation, in addition to the unbelievable work done by MITs and Stanfords and Harvards. Of course, they are phenomenal. We need them, but we need a lot more too. And therefore, the Inspiring the Missing Millions is a significant central mission of how NSF needs to move forward in the future. And we'll talk about that a little bit, how we are trying to actualize that. But in doing so, we also need to take responsibility for the economic vibrancy, national security as the mission states, in addition to the curiosity-driven, discovery-based research that NSF is very well known for. And therefore, how do we accelerate technology and innovation and build regional economic development, therefore national economic development and national security? How do we do that? So these are the strategic priorities where we said we'll put a laser focus on that. When I came to NSF, I said, how do I express this NSF's work in a way that people can understand this? Because people can easily relate to NSF. If a black hole discovery happened, they would say, of course, NSF was part of that. Yes, it was, because NSF has been responsible for 262 Nobel laureates so far in the last 75 years. No agency on planet Earth has that kind of a track record. In physics, in chemistry, in medicine, biology, and yes, economics. 262 Nobel laureates, who's counting? That is clearly understood. Curiosity-based or curiosity-driven, discovery-based explorations, we all know that that is NSF. And let us take that as one strand of what NSF does. But what people don't understand as well of NSF is the other strand. The other strand, which is the use-inspired, solutions-focused innovations. So I made up this DNA of NSF as these two strands intertwined together It is not part of a pipeline as people would like you to believe. Oh, you do the basic research, somebody does the applied research, somebody is there then translate the research. It doesn't work that way. These are highly intertwined. Fundamental curiosity-driven research makes possible innovations. Innovations in turn demand more discovery-based research. This is how we work. This is how this intertwining of these two, like a DNA does, is what we are trying to do. And you can think of the intermediary things here as ideas, discoveries, talent, workforce. You can put whatever you want, innovations, all of them there. So I thought this might be a way that people can appreciate this. Let's talk about on the other side. How many of you know that Google as a company, the two founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, were graduate research fellows of NSF. They wrote a proposal in 1994 to NSF to say that we want a digital libraries project funded. NSF funded that. 5 years later in 1999, they wrote the final report. And they said, by the way, we founded a company called Google a year earlier in 98. And rest is a $1 trillion history. People do not know how thousands and thousands and thousands of companies have their DNA of NSF, whether it is through the inventors, discoverers, and the workforce and the leadership. I was talking to Eric Schmidt the other day, the chairman of Google, good friend. He said, Panch, I was a graduate research fellow of NSF. I said, Eric, please don't tell me that. Just print a T-shirt and walk around with that every day. Particularly the halls of Congress, so people can know the impact of NSF. Impact of NSF. It's the people, it's the leaders, it is the unbelievable companies. Qualcomm in 1980, Peter came to NSF and said, I have got this great algorithm and I want to be funded for that, for a small business company. SBIR program of NSF funded it. Guess what? The Small Business Innovation Research Program of NSF was incubated by NSF. Now is in every other agency. Like the I-Core program, entrepreneurial program, incubated by NSF, now in other agencies. So NSF has got this rich history of not only doing amazing discovery-based investments in people, but also these kinds of programs and ideas that makes unbelievable things possible. We're going to go to those examples very soon. So Qualcomm now, 1980, SBIR program invests in that. In the early stage of the SBIR program, it's several $100 billion as a company. So I can go on and on and tell you stories, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm a storyteller, as you can see already, a loud one. So let's talk about the curiosity-driven research component of it and how Oregon has made an impressive set of contributions in the past and what is happening in the present. Let's take one example. The president just talked about this amazing project called Crescent. Crescent is a project of how do you invest in preparedness. Preparedness against things such as earthquakes, natural hazards. These are a huge problem these days in our nation. How do we invest in these ideas early enough that we might be able to prepare ourselves in these kinds of hazard situations, natural or man-made? And how do we do that? Right here at Oregon, there's a unique facet of what you're looking at, which is what the president talked about, subduction zone earthquake hazard. It is not like it is a replicant of something else somewhere else. It's a unique facet of that is very, attuned to the local nature of what Oregon is. And through that, how do we build the workforce of the future? How do we build the ideas of the future? How do we build the solutions of the future? How do we build the industries of the future that can take advantage of these innovations? All of these things happening at the same time, right here at the University of Oregon. And tomorrow when I'm at OSU, there are examples of OSU. What I'm trying to tell you is that this state of Oregon is contributing mighty well in terms of doing amazing work. No wonder, just in fiscal 2023, NSF invested $121 million in Oregon, of which $32.8 million was at the University of Oregon. Because we find these great ideas that go through these unbelievable peer review processes, the gold standard peer review process to get investments and garner investments. These are not gifts. These are not handouts. These are very hard-won dollars that you should take pride in. Let's take another example. The Center for Materials Characterization in Oregon, called CAMCOR. I'm going to go visit this center next in my itinerary. I'm so excited to see what's going on. We have a program called MRI. Anshuman and I have applied to this program when we were in a young faculty, as he said. You would still think we are young, but people differ. At least my wife says no. And my children vehemently agrees with her. So the MRI and the Partnership for Foundation program have invested in this program of CAMCORE. And electron microscopy, as you know, the materials is one of the important futures. The Material Genome Initiative, understanding and characterizing materials, developing new materials. This is a very, very important thing. As much as computing is important, materials are also important, the future of materials. And so right here in terms of polymer characterization, as well as X-ray analysis of understanding the materials composition, how do we build new materials, are exceedingly important as you think about the future. Again, remember, if I were to describe NSF by one word, that's what I am told. You have only one word, sir, not an elevator speech. What is NSF? I would say it's people. NSF is about people. It's about the people who are the discoverers, people who are the inventors, people who are the ones that work in industry and make amazing contributions, people who are the entrepreneurs. Yes, people in public service. I was thrilled when I was talking to Senator Warren and she said, I have an NSF grant early in my career. And I said, that's fantastic. You should wear a t-shirt. So you get the message here. So this is the kind of thing that we need to do more of. More and more of these kinds of centers and conceptualizations that we have. I won't have time to go through all of them. So for those of you who are wondering, oh my God, he didn't talk about my project, please don't feel so. I'm just taking some examples, that's all, and trying to do some quantum leaps here. So on NSF Quantum Leap, which is an area that we're investing heavily on, because this is the future, quantum, AI, these are futures. Now, if you look at one of the engineering research centers on quantum networks led by University of Arizona, UFO is a partner. UFO is a key partner in terms of how you're building quantum technologies as fundamental building blocks for the quantum internet of the future. Likewise, if you look at quantum sensing, which is a very, very important thing, even in things like telescopes, how do we have quantum level sensing for high level precision and accuracy of sensing, quantum sensing? And this is a project, again, that University of Oregon is involved in. And along with 20 other institutions, where we have a program where we're investing $1 million, and across the US, we have such investments to the tune of $29 million, 18 institutions in this case. And UFO is one of them. As you can see, you are part of the frontier ideas. I just want to communicate that. In curiosity-driven, discovery-based research, you are part and parcel of frontier ideas that you're putting forth. In addition to the amazing programs that I'm still sort of digesting, the night program. It's just unbelievable what you're doing. It's just phenomenal. Kudos to you. So the quantum imaging project is a very, very important project. And if any presentation is without AI, people will think that this guy doesn't know science. Therefore, I had to put AI. Not the fact that my area of research happens to be in that area too. On AI, what is the scorecard? NSF invests just in the last year over $800 million on AI-related activities. And all of those discoveries, education, ideas, infrastructure, innovation, technologies, translation, workforce training, yes. But what I remind people about AI, and this is very, very important for us to know, this AI investment is not today or yesterday or the last decade. NSF has been investing in AI for over 6 decades. When the term AI was just barely being pushed into the agenda, machine learning, barely coming into the fore. NSF has been investing year after year after year, decade after decade after decade, even during AI winters, when people were skeptical about AI. NSF continued to invest. And this is what NSF does really well, is never give up. Never give up, because failures are always stepping stones to success. We all know that. But NSF is an agency that believes in that. Not to walk away from a project when it has a failure, but to invest continuously in the concept to see what we can do even better. And so in the AI area, therefore, many, many investments. And when I came to NSF, I said, I want these AI conceptualizations to be all across our nation around big thematic topics. And we introduced this concept of AI institutes. We have 25 AI institutes funded across the nation in the last 3 years. Each of them $20 million scale, $500 million of investment. $500 million of investment. Okay? Okay, that's what happens. You get too excited, you press all kinds of buttons. I don't need slides, but I can keep talking. So the important thing to note is that this is about AI talent and ideas, not just talk, but walk the talk. That these AI investments, 25 institutes span 46 states of our country and territories. And that AI investments in writ large, beyond the institutes, span all 50 states and territories of our country. Because talent and ideas truly are everywhere, and we should tap into that at all levels. K-12 levels, community college levels, technical institute levels, four-year college levels, research university levels, and beyond. Let's be very clear about that. Of these 25 institutes and the $500 million of investments, 200 of the $500 million were actually invested in by our partners. That's the model that I like, is how do you leverage NSF investments with other partners so that we can scale? Because whatever the amount of money that NSF will get will still not be sufficient. How do we engage our partners? 5 of our AI institutes on agriculture of $100 million was fully invested in by USDA, the NIFA of US Department of Agriculture. They invested in us. One of the size of $20 million was invested by a conglomeration of companies, Google, Accenture, Intel, and Amazon, putting together $20 million, right? That's the kind of thing. Department of Transportation, Department of Homeland Security, NIH, Department of Defense, Department of Education. We're going to talk about that project in a minute. All of these, all agencies, we brought them to the fore and said, Department of Energy, how can we work with you so that we can leverage these investments as science and technology investments across our nation? So these are some of the institutions that were invested in the last cycle, but I'm going to talk about one of those, which you are a part of. This is the AI Institute for Exceptional Education, called AI for Exceptional ED, led by the University of Buffalo. University of Oregon is a partner in that. What is this AI Institute about? It turns out there are about 3.2 million children who need speech pathology services. Yet we have only 61,000 speech pathologists available. How do you take this massive need for speech pathology services? How do you use AI as a companion so that we might do some screening as well as providing augmentation of services that speech pathologists offer so that we can scale this pathology services to as broad a population as there is a need? And that's what this particular project is engaged in. And University of Oregon is a partner, an active partner in this, in building AI tools to aid teachers and the therapists in helping students. Likewise, there is another institute, AI Institute on Intelligent Technologies for Education called INVITE. We all know that if only we can use technology and the human interface in the most appropriate way, we can enhance learning. It's happening already in your institutions. And what COVID had done was accelerate that progress. And therefore, this AI Institute is focused on how can you leverage machine learning and natural language processing to produce more robust approaches for modeling human learning. And UofO is a partner in that too. So you see the imprint of University of Oregon in every facet of what we are trying to talk about here. Now, President Biden last October released an executive order on AI because there was a lot of concerns about AI as much as excitement about the opportunities of AI. So we worked together and the president issued the executive order, and there are several things tasked for different agencies. And one of those taskings for NSF was, in 90 days, NSF needs to launch a national AI research resource called NAIR. NAIR in partnership with many other agencies. In 90 days, folks, and I want you to understand the speed at which NSF works, and this is something that people don't understand and appreciate enough. So I have to talk about this. In 90 days, we assembled 12 federal agencies and 26 non-federal partners, non-governmental partners. The who's who in AI. NVIDIA, $30 million. We put in $30 million in the NAIR pilot. NVIDIA brought in $30 million of resources. Microsoft brought in $20 million of resources. Amazon brought in $10 million of resources. The who's who in AI, OpenAI, Anthropic, everybody is a partner in this ecosystem. In 90 days, we were able to bring all of them together with commitments of resources in terms of not only hardware, models, algorithms, data, so that we might bring all of the assets of what is needed so that we can democratize AI. Because AI progress cannot be limited to those institutions which have the wherewithal in terms of the resources available for them to advance those ideas. If we go that way, it will be a few companies and a few institutions at best who can move forward with this kind of a future. Therefore, we needed to democratize the access. So we rapidly put together the NAIR resource base. On January 24th, October was the executive order. January 24th, we brought this and released the NAIR pilot. Within 2 months, we funded 35 projects across the nation to have access to these resources. Now we have scaled it to over 100 projects having access to those resources, and we are continuing to grow the resources and see how we can work with Congress to see how NAIR can be a full scale, not a pilot, a full scale deployment all across the country. Department of Energy is a great partner in terms of bringing their exascale computing efforts, and so are the other partners, NASA and others, bringing in DoD and others, bringing their wherewithal so that we might build the resource that is necessary for us to unleash these great ideas. And so here it is. Okay? I'm not going to read those. The companies, and you will see the who is who in AI being brought together by NSF in a short amount of time, and we'll continue to do this. So when you're talking about unleashing opportunities everywhere and innovation anywhere, I'm a firm believer, having come from a small state called Arizona, and see firsthand what educational institutions and environments can do to unleash ideas and, more importantly, talent from every part of the state and beyond. It is possible. Innovation is everywhere. It is in context, that's all. You have to make sure that we mind that context that is best suited for that place. What is best for this place? Clearly semiconductors. No question about that, right? Clearly mass timber. Nobody questions why not Oregon, isn't it? So there are these topical areas where Oregon can be the leader, a national leader in terms of not only building the future, training the workforce, building unbelievable innovation ecosystems. So innovation can be anywhere. I'm firmly convinced in that. So when I came to NSF, one of the first things that I wanted done was to launch a new directorate at NSF. It turned out that in Congress, Senator Schumer and Senator Young were introducing the Endless Frontier legislation, which was fantastic. So therefore, we were able to take that and then work with that with U.S. Innovation and Competitiveness Act, USICA, which then became CHIPS and Science, and I'm so grateful to the President and the bipartisan support of Congress in getting the CHIPS and Science Act enacted 2 years ago. Well, granted, yes, many of them are authorizations, not appropriations. That's where you are all going to make it into appropriations, okay? So, but how do we make them? It's by showing the value of the investment, showing the outcomes from the investment, showing the possibilities of the investment is how do we get there. So this Technology Innovation Partnerships Directorate, the first new directorate at NSF in 31 years. I said we have to launch this within 1 year, and we have to have a variety of programs funded, which unleashes innovation all across the nation, like the Bell Labs everywhere, around thematic concept that is akin to the place. How do we bring the community, the ecosystem working together in terms of doing that? And how do we enrich the public-private partnerships? We cannot live and die by NSF's resources. We have to scale that using public-private partnerships, as you saw in the NAIR case. Right here, we are working with Intel, and right here we have Sanjay, working with Intel, $100 million over 10 years to train the workforce of the future in community colleges. How do you build the teachers who are then inspiring the talent of the future in K-12 institutions that you're all working on? They're working with things like Micron and Global Foundries, again, co-investing with us. How do we unleash these possibilities? We worked with Intel, Samsung, IBM, and Ericsson, and launched a future semiconductors program called FUSE, $46 million of investment. Many institutions participating in that, unleashing the next generation of materials, devices, technologies, architectures, software, and applications, so that we might realize the full power of the semiconductor futures. So these public-private partnerships are real. How are we doing for time, AR? I'm used to 15-minute lecture slots as a professor.
15 minutes left.
15-minute hotel, okay. Now, Q&A, okay. I'm assuming I'm so clear there'll be no questions. Just kidding. So this is just a flyby. And then what we will do is, in terms of entrepreneurship, how do we unleash entrepreneurship in every part of our nation? Through our NSF I-Core program, we have 4,500 groups already funded over the last 12 years in the I-Core program. 1,500 of those companies have taken off. $3.2 billion in capital has been secured by these companies from venture capital. Follow on. These amazing numbers that really has an impact. We introduced something called the entrepreneurial fellowships for PhD students to be able to go and try out their entrepreneurial with sufficient support and mentorship and networks being provided to them as part of the TIP directorate. The kind of lab to market platforms we talked about, the SBAR, right here, one of those companies that was founded by none other than Beth Espinette. Beth, are you here? She's working hard, so we should understand. She's founding the next company. So what Beth and the team have done is the following thing. They said, how do we take the yards that is being spun, which is then made into clothing, then cut and then stitched into shirts or whatever it is, or jeans or whatever that might be. How do I have the yarn directly into clothing rather than having to go through an intermediary step of cutting and wasting material? Okay? And that you can do, actually a single jeans can be built in 10 minutes. This is the kind of innovations that Walmart is very interested in apparently. This is the kind of innovations that's going to produce the next generation of how do you do eco-friendly solutions, but at the same time, very powerful ways of generating new materials, new kinds of fashion designs, and so on. So this is truly amazing when you look at the kind of SBAR projects that NSF funds and makes possible. So let's talk about the innovation partnership. I mentioned to you about the TIP Directorate. One of the exemplar programs of the TIP Directorate is called the Regional Innovation Engines. As I said, innovation should be anywhere and everywhere. So how do we ensure that we tap into that? Within a few weeks after the announcement of the directorate, we had the RIE call put out. We had 670 concept papers, just one page. We made them public, which is unusual for NSF. People partnered, few hundred proposals. We funded 44 of them, and then augmented with now those that did not prevail in the second cycle of the competition for larger scale RIEs. So we have so far funded 58 such awards, $1 million. And I will tell you stories of these. These are unbelievable. Right here in Oregon, there are a couple too. So we'll come back and look at that later. And likewise, we then took the next conceptualization of engines, which is the larger scale, $15 million over 2 years, 10 of them, $150 million investment by NSF, but $350 million in other investments that came along with it to make it a $500 million program. Unbelievable ideas akin to the place. You won't have time, but all of this is available on the website. If you go to RIE, you can see every one of them, the amazing partnerships. Just on the 10 RIEs, 477 partners. 477 partners on the 10 RIEs. That shows you the unbelievable coming together of community colleges. 6 of them in the North Carolina. I went with the First Lady Jill Biden to North Carolina, to Winston-Salem, for this innovation engine that was on the regenerative medicine, regenerative kidneys. 6 community colleges participating in the training of the workforce. You cannot succeed by not having all aspects covered in terms of companies being successful. I work very closely with the Commerce Secretary, Gina Raimondo. She and I worked like that, because when she came in, I knew her as Governor of Rhode Island, worked with her. So I told her, how might we close this? NSF and Commerce should not be like that. We should be like this. So I said, how do we take the regional technology hub of NSF Commerce, and RIE should be working like this? In fact, we co-created the call for proposals of regional technology hubs. So right here, let's look at the impact of that right here among between the two, how they have all come together in terms of innovation hubs all across the country. But right here in Oregon, we have advancing mass timber technologies. As I said, where would that be possible than here? Right? Where would that be possible? Like over 20 partners from across academia, industry, nonprofits, and including OSU and University of Washington in this hub. And what is exciting for me is that is then also augmented by the regional technology hub investments made in the same area, which makes it a highly synergistic way of building the future. Now, in terms of building workforce, this is an excellent example at the University of Oregon, the Network Resource Center. We all know that 17 million of NSF funds being invested. You are building those kinds of sustainable internet infrastructure for connecting researchers and communities worldwide in science and global science technologies being advanced. In order that will speed up, when I came to NSF, I asked the following question. Why is it that our portfolio of projects that we fund are primarily funding the usual suspect institutions only? ASU, University of Oregon, right? Why is it that only they get funded? Why not the Lane Community College? Why not the Research 2 institutions? Why not the minority serving institutions? What is essentially the missing piece there? And having done this in my job at ASU, where we quintupled our research volume, the answer is very simple. It is that you need a dedicated office that helps faculty find opportunities, forms teams, helps them write proposals, and he's the best man in terms of proposal writing. And with graphics, nobody can beat him. So it's how do you write these proposals in a very compelling way, for which you need help. How do you form partners? All of these things, and how do we be compliant with all the compliance requirements? Small institutions cannot afford that. They don't have the capacity to do it. It's a downward spiral. If I don't win proposals, there's no way I can have resources to set up an office. So we said, we have to break this cycle. So I said, let's create a program called GRANTED. GRANTED is an acronym, Growing Research Access Through Nationally Transformative Equity and Diversity. Yes, NSF is good at acronyms. But simply put, GRANTED is a program that is available for institutions and individuals who don't have the ability to access resources to put their ideas in the best possible form to transcend the gold standard merit review of NSF. How can we democratize the success? Because success is not there because of lack of ideas. The ideas are there. How do we ensure those ideas do get the support to ensure the success is obtained? So these are the component parts. I won't spend too much time. I was told that I needed to have time for questions. So I will leave you with this thought. This is the time. This is the time for us to unleash talent and ideas at speed and scale. This is the time for hyper partnering with every possible entity. This is the time in terms of bringing laser focus in terms of what every region of the nation can do. This is the time where domestic talent shall not, must not be left behind. And I leave you with that thought. I know I have been a little bit less energetic because I still drink my second cup of tea, but I look forward to the partnership with the University of Oregon.
Yes, Santiago Jaramillo, Associate Professor in Biology and Neuroscience. And I'm curious about how you talk to Congress people about the need for basic science, since these people may want a return on their investment really soon after basic science takes a while to see the efforts.
Let me tell you something. This is something that people keep asking me. Do you have the support of Congress? Let me tell you categorically, and the congressman can vouch me for this. There is total bipartisan support for the excitement about science and what science can do for the country, economic and national security. There's no question about that. We may have a different way of looking at science. There might be disagreements. There may be a few here and there. But by and large, I work with both sides of the aisle in House and Senate. I tell you, there is excitement about what science can do and what science can do, particularly in the context of our competitor, China. Okay? And therefore, I can tell you right now, there is no lack of understanding that basic science discovery is important. But there is also need. I always say to people, when you point a finger at somebody, there are three fingers pointing back at you. Remember that. We as a scientific community, we as academics have not communicated the impact. We have not shown why investing in us is important. We need to do a better job. And that job starts right here in Eugene. It's not in Washington. It's right here. When the congressman comes and sees, and he can attest to it as a past congressman, when they come and see the young, this is what I used to do at ASU. Whenever congressmen and senators came, I brought in the young undergraduate student, like what you did with the night program. And when they spoke, they were just mesmerized. We need to do more. So let's work together. I agree with your point, but let's work together to communicate the impact of science in a way that people can relate to. That's important. It's response. It's taxpayer investment, folks. They need to see the value. They need to see the impact. It's nothing. That's what you would expect that as a taxpayer.
Thank you, Panch. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it.